been a wild week for CBDCs, with Texas Senator Ted Cruz proposing a ban on creating a consumer-based central bank digital currency, following a similar state-level measure proposed earlier this week by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Emily, you've been watching these events unfold. Explain what's going on here.
Yeah, it's quite fascinating that you basically have politicians advocating for a ban of something that does not yet exist. So I think the real takeaway here is that we're seeing CBDCs, or central bank digital currencies, being positioned to become a Republican talking point in the presidential election, which I think is quite interesting. And, obviously they're talking about sort of like the symbolic implications here. Both Cruz and DeSantis are highlighting CBDCs as this sort of like surveillance tool. It's a way for the government to see every transaction that people make, which, of course, we don't know that a US CBDC, if it even happens, would look like that. But that's kind of how they're positioning this. So, I don't think either of these proposals are going to get anywhere in the short term. It's really more about messaging. But I think it is notable that CBDCs have made their way into the national political discourse.
So, Ron DeSantis, I understand, called CBDCs woke. I mean, is it because he's worried they're going to be used to pay for drag shows to teach critical race theories to children? I mean, like, what exactly does he mean by CBDCs being woke?
That is an interesting question. I'm just going to read to you a sentence from his press release, and you can interpret it as you see fit. It says, "A federally controlled central bank digital currency is the most recent way the Davos elites are attempting to backdoor woke ideology like environmental, social, and governance, ESG, into the United States financial system, threatening individual privacy and economic freedom." That's how they describe it. So that's definitely the first time I've personally heard woke and CBDCs in the same sentence, but
that's
yeah, like
it's like a QAnon post.
Well, what are the differences between DeSantis and Cruz's proposals here?
Yeah, great question. Well, so DeSantis is talking more about the state level and Cruz is talking more about on the federal level. Cruz has actually said this before. I think the similarities, again, is that they are both talking about CBDCs as like this tool, big brother tool by the US government surveillance. Cruz focuses a little bit more about China in his statement, saying, the US doesn't want to become like China. China has a CBDC, will become exactly like China. That's kind of what he's implying. DeSantis, some of the stuff, like, again, looking at his press release, his state chief financial officer said that, it's the cornerstone of a federal government that could track each and every transaction that happens in the world. I'm pretty sure a digital dollar wouldn't work that way. But yeah, so they definitely have like slightly different interpretations. But again, this is all part of this sort of GOP messaging. We don't want a strong Fed. We don't want the central government to have too much power. We don't want a surveillance state. That's kind of what they're messaging here. But what's the important thing to note is that the US has been very, very slow on the CBDC front. We don't even know if we're going to see a CBDC at all. And one of the things that has been holding up the development of a CBDC is privacy concerns. So I don't think the US is just going to roll out a digital dollar that can track every transaction made by every American. So it's a little bit of a straw man argument.
Well, at the same time,
Visa
the White
and American
House...
Express to know what I spend money on.
At the same time, the White House has released a report, the economic report of the president, and they also talked about CBDCs. So there's some differing views there. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I think it's important to mention this. So, when I first saw these statements, like the DeSantis thing, it's like, why, this seems like a straw man. Why are we getting all worked up about CBDCs that don't exist yet? The White House report is very notable because that report, as Nick reported earlier, it's scathing on crypto. I mean, if you had any questions about how some people in Washington see crypto and you read this report, I mean, it's basically described as like a valueless proposition. However, the section on CBDCs in that report is way more benign. They're not saying explicitly we want a US CBDC, but they're definitely more friendly to that idea. So that made me think, okay, maybe there are at least some people in the White House who see this as a more viable proposition as an alternative to decentralized digital currencies like Bitcoin.